Welcome to the Key to the Conversation podcast, where we don't just have beautiful ideas, we have organized minds, right? This podcast is for the creatives, the visionaries, the leaders, and the dreamers who've got big, gigantic goals, but also real lives. The ones trying to figure out how to actually follow through and not just stay inspired. So, whether you're building a business, managing a team, navigating burnout, or maybe you're just trying to be more consistent with what matters to you, this space right here, right now, is for you. Thank you for listening. I am so glad to have you here. Let's get into today's episode. Okay, today I want to talk about why most productivity systems don't actually work. Not in theory, but in practice. So for a lot of people, especially new project managers or folks trying to organize their life a little better, the go-to advice is to just find a system. And y'all know that I am pro system, right? I even wrote a whole blog post last week about 3 foundational systems every beginner project manager should set up first, which I feel you should go check out after this episode. But even the best system can fall apart fast if it's built on pressure instead of intention. And I've seen it in my own life and with the people that I support. You set up a new tool, you create your perfect Notion dashboard or your Google Sheet, you commit to using it every day, and then a week later, you're back to square one, wondering what exactly went wrong. So today I want to break down why that happens and how to create a system that doesn't just look good, but actually supports the way you work. So let's get into it. So the first thing I need to say is that most productivity systems are designed for structure, not for the people involved. So they assume that you're going to show up the same way every single day with the same energy, the same level of focus, and the same time available that you had when you made the system. These types of productivity systems assume that all tasks are created equal, that your brain doesn't shift day to day, and that life doesn't throw inevitable curveballs. But the real world just doesn't work like that, and neither do you or I, especially if you're neurodivergent, or maybe you're navigating grief, adjusting to a new job, parenting, caregiving. I mean, the list literally just goes on. Just anything that pulls on your executive functioning. A perfect, and perfect is in quotes, system can become a literal doomsday trap. So then when it falls apart, most people don't say this system didn't work for me. They say, I just need to try harder, when that's just not true. And trust me, I get it wholeheartedly. I used to fall into that category too. I would just find a new planner or build out a color-coded dashboard in Google Calendar or Asana, whatever tool. I'm good for trying out a new CRM tool, which is why I'm so skilled in so many. I would get everything set up and promise myself that I'd finally stick with it, but then life would just happen. And I'd miss one day, and then that one day would turn into 2, and then suddenly I'm avoiding the tool altogether. Then I'd shame spiral and start asking myself questions like, why can't I just be consistent? But looking back, it wasn't that I lacked discipline, it's that the system wasn't designed to respond to change. It wasn't agile. It didn't account for the fact that I might need different energy for different types of tasks, and that some days I'm on my Zoom and knocking things out, and on other days my brain is just foggy and I need to focus on smaller tasks. And honestly, y'all, that's not being neurodivergent, that's being human. And that's a lesson that I wish more beginner project managers learn early. You're not just building a system to check tasks off your list. You're building a feedback loop. One that tells you when things are working, when they're not, and how to shift without starting from scratch every single time. And so many new PMs or people managing their own work streams for the first time think that if they just pick the right tool, everything will fall into place. But tools don't solve your overwhelm. Structure without context is just a prettier version of stress. You can copy someone's Trello board, you can download, those Notion boards, Asana workflows, but if it doesn't reflect the way that you think, the way that you process and plan, it's not going to work for you long term. And even worse, it'll make you think that you failed when the system breaks down. But I always say a rigid system that looks good will fail faster than a flexible one that meets you where you are right now. And that means in any moment. So I actually use different tools for the different processes that I have. Every tool is not a one size fit all, even if that tool is a simple whiteboard. And that's why in my July 7th blog post, I shared 3 foundational systems to start with, because systems don't have to be complicated. Now, I'm not saying that you need 10 boards, 6 automations, a master dashboard, and the whole 9 to stay on track. You really can just have a system for tracking your work, a system for planning your time, and a system for checking in on progress and pivoting when needed. So for me, I have a master calendar, and then I'll put everything that I have to do for that week. But I also have my own tool that I use for Pinterest. I have my own tool that I use to track my Instagram and TikTok. I have my own tool that I use to track my LinkedIn posts and newsletters. So everything has its own lane, but it's all one process. That's it. And even those should be adjustable, but it has to be what you can understand and function with through life's uncertainty. So listen, if you're in a season where you're tired of constantly starting over, tired of downloading new templates that don't work with your lifestyle, I want you to hear this. You may not actually be the problem. The system you choose just needs to make space for the real you, your actual real life. All right, one thing I hear all the time from my clients, especially from the ones who are just starting to get serious about their workflow, is that they just need to be more disciplined. And listen, I truly get it. Discipline always sounds like the answer. It feels like the respectable, grown-up solution. It's like a catch-all phrase. You think to yourself, if you could just stop procrastinating, if you could just stick to the schedule, if you could just push through. But I need you to hear me when I say that discipline is not a substitute for a system that works. The discipline will only come if the system makes sense for you. And it's definitely not a fix for a system that doesn't give you any feedback. You can be incredibly disciplined and still feel like you're failing. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong per se, but it's more so that your system isn't giving you anything back from it. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is it's not telling you what's working and what isn't working, where your time is actually going or possibly not going, what your priorities should be, or how to adjust when life shifts. Discipline might help you show up to the occasion, but feedback is what helps you evolve as you keep going. Y'all know I love the saying, just 1% better a day is all you need. So let me give you an example. When I first started freelancing, I thought the answer to staying productive was waking up earlier, having a set morning routine, and sticking to this hyper structured schedule that I made in Notion. I loved the idea of being a 5 a.m. girly, and I'm laughing now because, okay. And for a while, it worked. I felt like a well-oiled machine. But the funny thing about this looking back is that I am actually not that big of a fan of Notion now. I mean, I still learned it because I need the skill, but it's not my favorite tool to use, and you can't pay me to willingly wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, trust me, there is enough time in a day to do what I I need to do without me waking up at the crack of dawn just for the aesthetic. I really just don't understand it. But as soon as I had a bad day or even a different kind of day than my system was built for, it literally just fell apart because it just wasn't realistic. And instead of asking what needs to change about this system, I immediately blamed myself because I thought I was slipping and not focused enough. But honestly, I really wasn't the problem. The key is knowing yourself and what you need. So for me, the system just didn't give me room to flex. There was no built-in moment to check in and ask myself, did this structure actually work for me this week? Am I doing tasks in the right order for my realistic energy levels? And is this tool helping me move forward, or is it just making me feel busy? Because y'all know sometimes feeling busy makes us feel productive, and we look back and we actually haven't gotten anything accomplished. So that's what I mean when I say systems need feedback loops. If your only source of information is whether you got something done or not, that is not a system. That's just getting to a finish line. And finish line systems create burnout, not growth, because you don't really know what you're trying to accomplish because your system doesn't account for that. So that's why I created the key method tools like the brag bank and the monthly work journal. I always include space to check in, not just logging your tasks, but actually reflecting and asking yourself what went well, what slowed you down, and where you can see growth. That's how you start making decisions that work with you instead of fighting you. Because see, most of us don't need more pressure because that often includes guilt, shame, blame, all the negative things. We just need better insight. Okay, so now that we've talked about what doesn't work, let's talk about what does work. So a supportive system is one that doesn't punish you when life happens. Nothing is worse than something like a death in your family, and then it feels like your system is punishing you for your circumstance. And we don't even have to get that extreme, right? A reliable system doesn't guilt you for just needing a break or make you feel like you failed just because you missed a day to go touch grass. Instead, it adapts. It gives you room to be human, and it helps you to recognize what you actually need in order to follow through. And it almost reminds me of working for a company and knowing that just because you take PTO, the company won't burn to the ground. I mean, we know our jobs are needed, but how dramatic would it be for you to come back and there's no job just because you took a break? But the systems that actually work long term are the ones that help you get clear on what matters. So they don't flood you with every possible task all at once, but on the contrary, they focus you and help you build momentum, and specifically not by relying on motivation, but by giving you a consistent rhythm to follow. And I know that discipline matters, but it should be foundationally based on how you work best. And let me just say this, your flow is your flow, not how your favorite influencer claims to work with all those sponsored ads on TikTok, okay? Not how your former manager told you to work at your past 3 jobs, and definitely not how you wish you worked in a perfect world, because that's a common one. It is about how you actually move through your daily life in real life. And like I said before, for me, that's meant using different tools for different needs. So I might use Airtable for one workflow, a simple whiteboard for another, and a completely different setup for my client work. So I stopped trying to force everything into one perfect app, one calendar, just because it looked good on someone else's TikTok. It's just not sustainable for me. And I feel that it probably isn't sustainable for a lot of you all. So function has to come first, always. It's also meant creating regular checkpoints in my process. So these will be the milestones that you're checking off as you go through your process, right? The best systems aren't built in one sitting. They're shaped over time. You have to give it time. That is why it's a feedback loop, because you have to see what is working for you and what isn't so that you can adjust. A supportive system will grow with you. It gets smarter as you get smarter. And more than anything, it gives you something to return to because it genuinely makes your life easier. Okay, so here's the thing. When a system reflects your real life and your real needs, it stops being something that you have to force yourself to fall into. It becomes a supportive structure, something that holds you together, even when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. And that's what I want more people to experience, not productivity for productivity's sake. Okay, we're not looking for perfection, but systems that actually support you, the real you, not the optimized fantasy version of you that only exists on your Pinterest planning board. So hear me when I say, build the kind of system that will last. Okay, so I want to zoom out for a second because this isn't just about how you manage your day. So if you lead a team, if you support high-level stakeholders, if you work alongside executives who are juggling the vision for these projects and about 100 other decisions a day, your systems don't just affect you. They affect everyone around you as well. So when your systems are responsive and flexible, your team tends to feel safer, and leadership trusts that you have a foundation that they can ultimately count on. They want to know how to get to you and how to adjust when something shifts in the project. And y'all know that I'm an advocate for change and being proactive about change because life is just unpredictable. Change is inevitable, and so your system needs to be ready for that. And you need to make sure that these executives are not stuck waiting on answers, or honestly, you need to make sure that they're not plotting against you because they don't know what's going on, or they don't know how your presence makes positive impact on the company. You have to remember that at the end of the day, these projects are making the company money. And so if executives have to question if you're making the company money, then they're going to start questioning your time at the company. So when executives and high-level stakeholders feel that your systems work, they're more honest with you. They're more collaborative. And listen, trust from executives is exactly what you need. Y'all, that is how we get promotions, okay? So listen, don't just say we're behind. You need to explain why and how you're actively getting back on track. Don't just say that you need more time. You need to show where the bottlenecks are and how your team is working to remove the roadblocks, okay? You need to show leadership that you're not just telling them that there's a problem for them to fix. You're telling them that, hey, I'm letting you in on the process and communicating updates to you that there is something going on, but I'm also communicating that I have it under control. Remember that you are the leader of your team, the one holding the campaign together. So this builds credibility for you, and it makes you the person that executives want in their room sitting at their tables, because you're not just managing tasks, you're managing campaign movement. And so whether you're leading a team of 3 or supporting a CMO, your ability to build and maintain systems that actually work, that is what makes you invaluable. All right, so most productivity systems fail because they're solely built for performance. They look good, but they just simply aren't flexible. They're not agile. They just keep you busy learning more tools, but they don't help you reflect on what you already have. And that may not be your fault, but it is your opportunity to choose something better. So whether you're managing your own workload or leading a full team, the systems you build should support you and not stress you out. And if you're ready to rethink how you plan, track, and reflect, go check out my latest blog post, 3 systems every beginner project manager should set up first, up now at keytotheconvo.com. That is KEETOTHECONVO.com. I'll also link a few of my favorite key method tools in the show notes if you want something simple, flexible, and actually functional to get started with. Thanks for spending time with me today, and remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's a little progress every day. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If it resonated with you, I'd love to keep the conversation going. So feel free to connect with me on socials. I am at Key to the Combo on Instagram and TikTok. And you can also find me on LinkedIn at Kivanya Webb Riley. All the links are in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will talk to you next time. Bye.